What do teams look for in the NBA Summer League? Who has stood out in the NBA Summer League? And let's talk about some 2021 prospects, revisiting that class, seeing who could break out in a sophomore season. Coming up next on Locked On NBA Big Board.
You are Locked On NBA Big Board, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? My name is Richard Stayman. I am filling in for Rafael Barlow. You probably know me better as @MavsDraft on Twitter. Been media credentialed, for several years now. I'm trying to think about it. It's been almost 5 years that I've been media credentialed with college basketball and just general high school basketball, other basketball events, combines, things like that. I've been in the draft, quote unquote, industry. Now this is my year 6. So I'm entering a veteran status, but I've been amateur doing this for almost 20 years now, a good portion of my life. But today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered with this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So for today's episode, I've been watching Summer League on and off. I'm not going to lie, I haven't paid close attention to it. Not only is there a little bit of burnout on my end from covering this draft of 100 plus prospects, as much fun as it is, there is time needed for a break, and I've used this time to take a break. I've still tuned in, but I'm watching very casually. I've been keeping up with some of the stats, so I figure I wanted to talk about who has been good in the Summer League and what it actually means. I think a lot of times it's easy to see, like, Moses Moody had that 34-point game, but a lot of people don't know what it means. I don't know what it means. Like, I'm not going to act like I have every answer here, but I want to give some insight into some of what goes on in scouts' eyes and teams' eyes of what they're looking for in this. So let's start with that element of it. I think this will be a pretty short episode. I say that now, but I have this habit of getting carried away and making it a little bit longer than necessary. But I think for me, when I watch Summer League, I don't go out there going, all right, let me see who's a hidden gem that I can see as a next star, because Summer League, what it is, it's essentially pickup. Like, it's pickup that the teams chose the rosters. You get a week or two of practice, and then you're thrown into the fire. It's very much me first mentality, especially among a lot of guards and players who have specialty roles. If they're shooters, they're going to want to get their shots up. They want to show teams that they can, in fact, shoot. They're a primary ball handler. They want to show they can create for others. They might be unselfish to a fault. One example of this in the California Summer League was Frankie Ferrari, who he was very good at what he did. It was a good problem to have, but he was only passing. Like, he was not shooting at all. He was trying to get everybody else involved. And sometimes you got to exaggerate what you're good at to really stand out for the NBA team in your audition. So a lot of it is me first. It's not necessarily a knock on these players, but it's a survival tactic. So for me, when I'm watching these games, I take some of it with a grain of salt. Moses Moody is a prime example of what to look for. I think year 1 players, year 2, some year 3, even this year, because the 2020 class didn't get a summer league, being drafted in November with COVID. I think it's very easy to say, hey, Moses Moody had a great game. Is he a breakout player? Like, is he a star? I think the breakout player, yes. He had some run in the playoffs. I think we've seen enough flashes, him and Jonathan Kuminga, very confident in. They're pretty much what they're there for is to work on their weaknesses, right? So Moses Moody is a 3-and-D guy. That's what he was labeled as a prospect heading into the NBA. He's very long, can shoot, great stroke, really good at defense, doesn't separate, doesn't really drive, doesn't play make that much. He's not necessarily a hole. It's just something he doesn't do. It's not a negative for him. It's just a neutral 0, I guess. And for Moses Moody, I mean, he had 0 assists in his lone game, and he plans to play again. And just for the record, Summer League started on Thursday, the 7th, and it ends on Sunday, the 17th. So I had to calibrate my days there. Still thrown off with after the draft and everything. But Moses Moody has only played 1 game. They changed the format. It's pretty much you just keep going, and there's a consolation bracket. The way it works is just winners keep advancing, essentially. Moses Moody took 17 free throws in 1 game, made 3 of his 6 threes. Was rebounding just 34 points. He was the number 1 player. So what it means with guys like him, I keep using him as the example, but year 2 players, pretty much they're trying to work on their holes and see what they can do, and they're going to be almost at times too good for summer league because they have the NBA experience in a minimal way, but it's a lot more noticeable than year one. It's that competition gap has helped them a ton. Then you look at guys like Jayden Hardy, who in his one game, he had a pretty solid outing. I say that as a Mavs fan, but he had 28 points on 47% shooting, 29% from three, 2 of 7, I should say, from three, had 3 assists, needed to work on his turnovers. But you saw the skill. That jump from the G League for him was minimal. I don't think that was something that was very hard for him to adjust to. And I say all this, no team has played more than 2 games at the time of this recording on Monday afternoon, early morning, depending where you are. But, sometimes there's going to be the opposites, though. One example, RJ Nembhard. He is, RJ Hampton. Too many RJs. I almost said Barrett after that, too. RJ Hampton is a third-year player on the Magic, was drafted in that 2020 class, wanted to get into Summer League, which I admire so much. I talked about that last week, how he really put in the extra work to be there, did not have to be asked to be there, and actually has been pretty disappointing, unfortunately. So he struggled with turnovers, was dribbling into nothing. He's kind of a black hole. He's trying to work on being that glue guy, build chemistry with Paolo Banchero, but it's almost done backwards damage. And to me, while I do take Summer League with a grain of salt, that is the ultimate takeaway here is take all of this with a grain of salt. It is a little bit alarming to me that he didn't stand out. He should have been putting up 20 on 50% shooting, I thought, or at least have 6 assists, something like that, and none of that happened. So interested to see how he does. A different perspective for a year 2 player, somebody who I like, just kind of touching on these is how I'm going to do a little bit of both of the recap and what it means is Neemias Queta from Sacramento. He has shown he's one of the few players to actually show something I think that really translates up from what his role is. He was, I want to say he was not on a 2-way last year. Somebody correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but he was not on a 2-way last year, was just an end-of-bench guy, taken early second round out of Utah State. He was known as an interior presence, right? He blocked shots, he dunked. That was his whole thing. This year, he's taking threes. He had a massive 3 in the Vegas Summer League to really just blow the. I think he forced overtime, maybe gave him the game winner or something like that. Sacramento is great in the Summer League, but what it means is that might be a real weapon he has in the arsenal, and he's showing it against young NBA talent. Maybe Sacramento can use that as a base for him to grow into a stretch big that finishes well and dominates the paint. That'd be a really helpful tool for him to break out. He was a junior at Utah State, so sometimes that stuff is a little bit rare, but he shot 71% from the free throw line. There's touch. I think it's entirely possible. So just from a more macro picture going at this again, though, I want to emphasize Summer League, if you're trying to take victory laps now or opposite end, trying to say, dang, I'm so wrong on this, hold back. Players have had bad summer leagues. I think having good summer leagues is a pretty good trend, but missing shots doesn't really equate to much. I saw people last year writing off Evan Mobley and Cade Cunningham, saying they were both going to be busts because they couldn't do much in summer league. They were really struggling at times, couldn't get to the rim. I remember seeing takeaways. I was actually looking at a Reddit post from last year saying Cade Cunningham's inability to get to the rim was so obvious. And then obviously in the NBA regular season, after the injuries and everything, after he healed up, no issue ever getting to the rim. So that stuff doesn't really mean a lot. The one thing that does is generally the Summer League MVPs. There's a couple one-offs. It's a good predictor of they might have a spot in the league. The only ones I can think of that didn't really stand out, there was Sebastian, or who was it? I want to say it was Sebastian Telfair or something like that. It was somebody maybe in 2010, so a little bit after Telfair, who won co-MVP. Wasn't that good. It was actually Josh Selby. He was one of them, and then there was Glenn Rice Jr. Outside of that, the Summer League MVPs have actually, I think almost all of them since 2010 are in the league. So John Wall was one. I can't remember all of them, but I saw it on Reddit, and it was actually a really good post and highlights that, hey, Summer League, way kind of matters. But the bigger thing is just hey, don't, I've been wrong on guys, and I'm not saying this just because one of the guys that I was lower on this year had a good debut in Summer League, but generally don't take your victory laps in Summer League. Use it to say, all right, now I know what to look for going forward, because this is almost an audition in a way, not only for young players that are trying to make the league, but also for guys that are fringe rotation players that were drafted last year or this year. They're trying to show, hey, I also have this in my game and I can use it in game. So that's a big thing. And the most important thing is these undrafted guys are generally going to be the ones I feel like having some unknown big games. And it is good, but generally their ceiling for the immediate future is they're probably going to get a training camp invite, maybe two-way, maybe they get the last roster spot. That's generally the ceiling. So when a random guy goes off, try not to take too much of it. Like Mac McClung has been doing well. Try not to take too much of it and say like, oh, see teams like just completely missed on him. He's a rotation player. Hold the brakes. And then opposite end, if somebody's doing poorly, it's not the worst thing. It means, hey, they're not making their shots and they're in a little bit of a cold spell. Doesn't mean a whole lot. Like, again, it's an exhibition game. Some of the players are going harder than others. Not everybody's at the same tempo. I think that stuff matters. But I also want to talk about some of the 2021 guys, not only just from Summer League, but also in what to look for in the future. But first, let me tell you about Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports development, league reviews, and news, including this year's MLB playoffs and the NHL season that just wrapped up, NBA Summer League, all of it. It's all on Bet Online. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And betonline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcast news, and everything related to any sports this season. It's the fastest and easiest way to check on all in and on all of your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, golf, all the year-round events. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Welcome back to Locked On NBA Big Board. Again, my name is Richard Stayman. I am filling in for Rafael Barlow as he is awaiting the birth of his child. So congrats to Rafael. For this portion, for the rest of the show, I talked about Summer League. Kind of want to talk about just a few guys that I've been studying a little bit more in the 2021 class, namely Franz Wagner. I'm actually just going to stick to the Magic on this. So I'm going to start with Franz Wagner. Franz Wagner really just hasn't gotten a ton of credit. There was a whole list, and I'm actually going to pull this up. I should have had this before, but there's a whole list of tiered players, of young players, and Franz Wagner was on a list of tier 5 with Quentin Grimes, Ayo Dosunmu, Manuel Quickley, some guys such as that. And I thought it was interesting because I thought Franz Wagner was very clearly the best player in this bunch. But ESPN, and I think it was, it's The Athletic, had a different ranking. So the ranking went in this same, I don't know if this is in order or not, but it went Ayo Dosunmu, Cam Johnson, Franz Wagner, Gary Payton II, Grant Williams, Jakob Poeltl, Josh Giddey, Keldon Johnson. We also have Kevon Looney, Kyle Kuzma, Lauri Markkanen, Lou Dort, Quentin Grimes, and RJ Barrett. These are almost exclusively all players under 25 for the most part. I thought it was a little bit interesting. I thought Franz Wagner, who just had one of the most remarkable rookie seasons not to win Rookie of the Year, that was kind of special. That was interesting to me. It stood out. 15 points a game, 3 assists, 4.5 rebounds per game, one steal, half a block, and that was on 47% shooting, 35% from from 3, and 86% from the free throw line. So all of that. I mean, you look at a player who doesn't have holes in his game. It's interesting to see him on the tier of some of those other guys, especially when you're trying to project forward. I think Franz Wagner is only going to get more efficient and stay around that volume. I mean, even if he tops out at 16 to 18 points a game and increases only slightly, that efficiency is always going to get better because his feel for the game is so strong and he's still improving as a spot-up shooter, yet he shot 35% from 3. So I want to talk about how I think he's going to break out in a different way than a traditional breakout. Paolo Banchero there is going to change his volume. Absolutely. He took 12 attempts per game last year, and on the team, that ranked second. Wendell Carter took 11. He took 12. Cole Anthony took 14. Likely outcome for this year is Cole Anthony's volume will dip a little bit. Paolo Banchero is going to dig into some of that. He's going to take away some of the shots from other guys. It's really hard to see, actually, because there's a logjam of talent and guys that need the ball. But Paolo is most likely going to get some run as first option. So with Paolo there's going to be some changes. Franz Wagner is no longer going to be as much of a primary initiator. And the hope is that these guys get more efficient, having more scoring options around them. So you look at Franz Wagner being 47% from the field, 35% from 3-on-3 attempts per game. The ways he can break out Franz Wagner is already a good defender. I don't think there really needs to be any change on that, just like natural development or just staying along that flat line trajectory. It doesn't really need to go up, doesn't need to go down. I don't see it as an issue one way or another, but having an improved scoring option that could be a more efficient player. And generally, again, if Paolo does make his teammates more efficient, that probably means more assists are happening. So Franz's 3 assists, if he's a connecting piece, just making that extra pass gets him a few more assists, right? So for me, I see him taking another jump there, having a better shooter off ball in Paolo Banchero to create assists for Franz Wagner could be huge. And then on top of that, if Franz becomes a knockdown spot up shooter, which the free throw percentage indicates it's possible, and the 3-point percentage definitely indicates it's possible. If he's in the gym every day this summer, there's a real chance that 35% is a baseline for him, not a ceiling. Like I thought 35% this year was a ceiling. I think it could be a baseline if he learns how to play off ball at a very high level. So for me, that's really important. I think that's something that would help him take a big jump, but also just the rebounding. Like he only averaged 4.5 rebounds a game. I think if he's playing a little bit different of a role, being more of a cutter off ball, he's going to be able to find himself near the rim. I think you'll see him eclipse 5 rebounds a game. That's not a huge difference, but 4.5 to 5, it looks a lot better. Considering guys like Cole Anthony had 5 rebounds a game. Chuma Okeke had 5 rebounds a game, and Chuma and him actually had a very similar placement on the court a lot of times. So hard to see that not overlapping, but I think Franz Wagner could be a big breakout player. And it's weird he just doesn't get the respect for it, because you look at what everyone else on that list does need to do for a breakout or what they do now. Generally, it's not the same. Kelden Johnson's close. I don't know how Josh Giddey is on this list with him. I would put Josh Giddey and Franz have no business being here, and probably Kelden Johnson and RJ Barrett. Everybody else is really good. I think Lou Dort's the best remaining after that. But for the most part, they're role players, right? Like these are guys, the other 2 are guys that I see being first 2 options. Giddey's going to be one of the best playmakers in the NBA. I'm not really lacking confidence in saying that. I think that's been pretty obvious since he was in the draft. Kelden Johnson is already a 20 points per game guy on really efficient shooting. He's learned to do what I've talked about Franz needing him to do, which is shoot off ball. He shot 40% from 3 this year, massive jump from 33%. And he's been efficient at actually not 20. He was at 20 for a portion of the season, but he is 17 points per game, 47%. Then there's RJ Barrett, who I think everybody anticipates at some point rather than later, like he's going to go up from his current 20 points a game on 40%. And if he just raises his efficiency to 45%, there's a good chance that volume comes, because 20 points on 17 shots a night, not that great of a look. But ultimately, I think you can see that the ability to play off ball next to Paolo Banchero and how he's going to potentially make his teammates better, assuming that being the number 1 pick, he does live up to at least some level of that hype. I think you're going to see Franz Wagner in turn increase the volume in a weird way, because he had the ball as a primary initiator a lot. I think you're going to see some changes in it. So big things coming for him. Jalen Suggs, I'll lightly touch on him. He is a disaster on offense. If he can make more shots, I mean, that is as simple as it is. There's nothing fundamentally broken about his shot. Sometimes he can take bad shots, but you can say that about a lot of rookies. He's already a great defender. There's 2 outcomes for him. Either the shooting was such a fluke that we get a real bounce back this season as a sophomore, or he turns into a Marcus Smart type where you ask him to do a little bit of, guard duties, not a full-time on any one thing, spot up or playmaking, but you ask him to do a little bit of combo and here and there and be a defensive first guard. I think he can thrive entirely. And we've seen every title team needs that. I mean, the Celtics just made the NBA Finals, but I'm excited for the Magic core. I think Franz Wagner will take a different jump than expected this year. He's not going to develop any one new skill or anything, but being an off-ball player and thriving in that while maintaining the same offensive consistency would be really big for him. But so just actually one last thing on before we get done here, just kind of want to talk about what to expect from some of the sleepers I have in Summer League. So kind of rounding this back to Summer League. Franz Wagner didn't play, but some of the other guys did. I'll talk about who I'm looking forward to watching not only today, but the rest of the week for the next 6 days. But first, let me tell you about Rock Auto. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers and phones with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. With Rock Auto, you save time and money, and why choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership when you can get them at Rock Auto? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Their prices are reliably low for every single customer, and they have everything you can need. Brake parts, motor oil, lamp, tail lamps, new carpet, you name it, they've got it. So go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Back here at Locked On NBA Big Board again, my name is Richard Stayman, filling in for the one and only Rafael Barlow, as he is out having a kid. So congrats to Rafael. So just talking about some of the guys that are standing out and who's going to make some, jumps here. I think there's somebody who I haven't seen any talk about these two players. They're actually like back-to-back in the scoring through 2 games, which is really interesting. And one of them is not efficient. But there's 2 players who I think just haven't gotten not a lot of love in the Summer League. And I'll start with somebody who started very slow for Sacramento, and that's Keon Ellis. He had a terrible outing, I think, in his first game in the California Classic. And this is why it's important not to overreact to one game. I've seen people come in my mentions saying like, oh, Keegan Murray's a bust after the first game. Kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning. Tone your expectations, tone it down a little bit. It's just Summer League. It's a pickup game, essentially. But Keon Ellis is somebody who he has bounced back. In 2 Vegas games, shooting 61.5% from 3 on 6.5 attempts. Really getting good at that those corner threes, and also he's playmaking too. I mean, he's getting some assists out of his pass fakes, collapsing defenses. Really just continuing what he did at Alabama. So I think it's projectable. Another guy is somebody who actually played with Keon Ellis at Alabama a year ago, and that is Josh Primo. Would have liked him to be a little bit more efficient here, but you look at the 3 assists per game, I think that's pretty telling, and also no turnovers. So that's really important. I'm assuming he had 4.5. I knew that didn't sound right. He had 4.5 assists, which is more impressive, but 3 turnovers. He does need to cut that. Would like to see him get some more scoring tonight. They play at 6 o'clock Central against the Houston Rockets, 7 Eastern. So that's in a few hours here. Really good outing. That's a really big game. The Houston Rockets have Josh Christopher. I think will be a good matchup. I think that's somebody to potentially watch as a Summer League star in one of these games. And then we got 2 big ones. Actually, really one big one. I'm just a junkie in some of the ways I like some of these other games, but the biggest one, 8 o'clock Central, 9 Eastern, Oklahoma City and Orlando Magic. It's Paolo Banchero versus Chet Holmgren, 1 versus 2. It's a matchup we all wanted to see. We saw it once in the regular season in Duke Gonzaga. We get our rematch. So that'll be a really exciting game. Also interested to see how RJ Hampton does, because like the Magic, the Thunder have some guys that are not just rookies playing in this Summer League. I mean, Josh Giddey's in there. They've got some other guys. Trey Mann is out there. So interested to see how he does against some peers in the NBA. And then lastly, I mean, the one I was going to say was the Milwaukee Bucks and Boston Celtics. I'm a big fan of Sandro Mamukelashvili. He had a big game, his first one. I still think he's somebody who sticks. He was the 54th pick a year ago. He's a point center. He can play make, he can rebound, he can force some steals. He plays like a guard. He is a center. I'm pretty big on him. So really would recommend actually watching that one. I think that's on NBA TV. But there should be ESPN streams as well. He's somebody worth tuning in for just because that's so unique skill. He's 6'10", 6'11", and runs the point at times. Can run pick and roll, lefty jump shot if you're a sucker for that like me. That's big. But those are the games to watch tonight. There are a couple others coming up the rest of the week. It's hard to tell because they have this format, but so it's a little bit indefinite in a way. But the Chicago Bulls played the Toronto Raptors. I think you'll get some good games there. Christian Coloco has been really fun to watch in the limited time I've gotten to see them. The Summer League rematch is on ESPN tomorrow night at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. It's the Celtics versus Warriors. No Steph Curry, no Jason Tatum, but they both do have some exciting young players. And then also, if you're a Mavs fan listening to this, which I imagine you are because a lot of my followers on Twitter are Mavs fans, Jayden Hardy will be going up against the Phoenix Suns. I know there's still some bad blood there from the playoff series. It's going to be the next time we see him in action. AJ Lawson as well. They both really stood out. Interested to see how both of them look. Jayden Hardy is a pure scorer. Interested to see how his playmaking looks tomorrow and if his defense is any improved, as well as if he can just repeat the consistency from shot making. So really excited for that. But thank you so much for making Locked On NBA Big Board your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go ahead and listen to Locked On NBA. They cover up all the latest news and rumors in the NBA in just 30 minutes or less with Locked On NBA. They are your daily NBA update in just 30 minutes. So go ahead and listen to them. Thank you so much for listening. And for Raphael, who will be back in a couple weeks, I'm Richard Stayman. Have a wonderful rest of your day.